Here we go. A Gracious Space Fall, Day 49. Why write better? Top reasons to write better. To eliminate the stress associated with writing. Right? That should be always the number one reason. Number 2, to express and externalize feelings. Number 3, to argue a viewpoint with power. Number 4, to keep in touch with people you love. And number 5, to entertain and inform people. Education, academic writing, is a great process of growth, but its duration of use is short-lived. Remember, cultivating a writer is about ensuring that your adult will be able to function literately in all of his or her activities and relationships. Quote of the day: these are great motivations and goals to write better. Thanks for the list. Brenda Story. Sustaining thought. Writing is a skill your kids will use for a lifetime, so it's worth learning to write better. So awesome. Let's talk about writing. Writing better. When we think about writing, too often we assign it to a school task. And the whole goal of that task is for A's in a class, or getting into college, or fulfilling the requirements of a literature or history or sociology class. And we don't think about how many ways people write today. And they write in all kinds of contexts, don't they? They write in order to fulfill the function of their job. They write in order to communicate with a loved one. I know for me, one of my favorite parts of any holiday that is romantic or a birthday is getting cards. I like people to write me notes that are meaningful, not just to sign or to only include the information or the language of the card. I want to hear somebody's heart, and I want it to be articulate. I don't want it to just be the canned, usual comments that anyone would make. I know that when I'm writing and it's for a friend, I sometimes want to be entertaining. One of my friends has a birthday today, and if she's watching, shout out to Patrice. I sent her a text message after midnight so she would get it before she woke up this morning and went running. And I wanted to be clever and humorous. I wasn't just fulfilling my obligation. It is also my son Jacob's birthday today. I will send him a message that is private and personal and goes through my memories of him. And I will post something for everybody to read on my wall that lets people know what an amazing human being I think he's turned out to be. Writing is not just getting through college, and it's not just even doing your job well, although it is a critical skill, and more people ought to have a better writing background to do their jobs well. Customer service requires flawless punctuation, wonderful spelling, and excellent communication skills. Those are important skills to have. And we want our kids, if they are ever in that context, to be able to write an email, compose it, be able to have clarity of thought in their speaking voice that shows up in writing. So writing has many applications. Some of you know this because you have become bloggers and you've experienced what it's like to write for, what did I say? An audience. We want to inform and entertain people, and we want to do it in ways that understand the rules of the game. So often when I'm on these Facebook groups where we're talking politics, and I'm on a whole bunch of Facebook groups that talk politics, I notice that people go into their sort of bias when they're writing their perspective without any ability to substantiate their claims. So they just spew a rant and they say all kinds of attacks on other people, or they belittle and make fun of other viewpoints without really exploring or substantiating their own. Well, if we want to have a meaningful contribution to make in the political arena, it behooves us to be good writers, to actually understand the structure of an argument. So yes, academic writing is important, but it's an 8-year window. Your kids learn it in high school and they stop using it after college. Maybe if they go on to grad school, they'll squeeze another 2 years into their writing experience. But the vast majority of us only have to know how to do essay writing and research paper writing for high school and college. And when that's over, then what? Do you still feel comfortable writing? I run into so many adults who hate writing, who don't feel comfortable, who aren't competent. They think to themselves before they write me, should I write her? What if I misspell a word? What if I have bad grammar? Why would any adult feel that they couldn't write an email to someone who runs a writing company? Well, it's because of the way writing has been treated their whole lives. They've grown up in a context where the instructors penalized them when their self-expression didn't have matching perfect mechanics. And then they were not taught in a meaningful way how to grow in those mechanics so that they could feel the sense of competence and, ability when they face a writing task. And that's what we want for our kids. So in Brave Writer, of course, we aren't only interested in essays. We're interested in journal writing. We even have a class that teaches you how to write a comic strip coming up in this next session, because that's how much we value writing. We do academic writing, we do fiction writing, we talk about journal writing, we talk about autobiographical writing, because every single one of those will have some kind of role in the life of a writer over a lifespan of 90 years. I mean, if we live to 100, and let's hope we all do, and only 10 years of it, or 8 years of it, is spent doing academic writing, then that's only 10% of your life that needed to understand how to write the compare-contrast expository essay. What are you going to do for the rest of your life when the keyboard has become the primary vehicle of communication? Yes, we have these kinds of conversations, and having the ability to present yourself orally is also important. But there is a vast amount of actual writing everyone is doing every day today because of the internet. Far more writing than any time in history by far more people. In fact, I watched a little video yesterday. Maybe some of you saw it. It was called If Only 100 People Lived on the Planet. And out of 100 people, 74 people are literate. So that means 26 people can't read and write out of every 100 people, which is way too high. I mean, that number is too high. But compared to history, that is an earth-shattering number, that there are that many people on the planet who can write and read. So first of all, one thing to know is, because that many people can write and read, there are a lot of people who make writing mistakes, because that means the masses are educated. Not everyone is getting a royal court tutorial. People are going to a variety of schools. They have a variety of aptitudes. Some people have different learning abilities. But how incredible is it that out of every 100 people on the planet, 74 of them can read and write? That's a privilege, and we want to use that skill, and we want to be sure that we are using it, and using it as well as we can, and preparing our kids so that they can use it. The way we get there, however, is not doubling down on academics. It's actually rejoicing in and supporting the writing voice, the natural self-expressor that is your child. Because if we support that, if we give that attention, the hunger to be good at writing grows. And then the expository essay or the MLA research paper become tools of self-expression. They don't become bludgeons, out to harm your self-esteem. They are actually just one more way that you can self-express. Does that make sense? So yeah, I can teach you all the academic forms in a couple of years. They're not really that hard. What's challenging in writing isn't the format. It's actually knowing what to say, having something to say, generating insight, cultivating a relationship with the subject that spills over into that self-expression. The format is just the container for all that good thinking. So we want to start with that and pull that out of people. Okay, I'm going to read some comments and drink my special morning drink. Let me see what we've got going here. What did you ask? It's not letting me see. Oh, here we go. Let's see. I don't know who that is. Okay. I don't see any writing questions, so I'm going to stick with the writing portion, and we'll handle other questions at the end of the broadcast. So does anyone have a writing question about your kids? The way that you cultivate the writing life is to form a partnership between you and your child to encourage and nurture whatever self-expression shows up. So I recommend a lot that you would jot down what your child is actually saying to you. So if they are telling you a little story, or they're busy explaining how to play bowling on the Wii, grab a sheet of paper, any sheet will do, and just start jotting it down. They may wonder, what is mom doing? What is dad doing? Say, oh, this is too good to miss. I want to write it down so I can read it later. Then, later in the day, pull that sheet of paper out in front of your child, maybe at the dinner table, and read it to the rest of the family. You can say, Johnny was telling me this little story about Rocky, our dog, this morning. It was so good. I just had to jot it down. And now I want to read it to you. And then just read it aloud at the table. You will be shocked. Usually your child is kind of proud that their words are being said back. The very ones that would have disappeared into the ether are now preserved and can be said back to someone, because that's the purpose of writing. The purpose of writing isn't to get an A. The purpose of writing is to preserve language so it can be shared over and over again. Someone asked me, do you keep jotting down for all of childhood? I'll tell you how I think about it. The jotting it down practice is particularly powerful for kids who either can't write at all yet, they're too young, they don't read, they don't know how to handwrite, or any age-blocked writer. So even 16 or 17, if they are blocked, jotting down spontaneously, not asking them to talk, but catching them in the act of thinking and self-expression. Once you have that moment and you jot it down and you demonstrate that the thoughts in the head are what you want to see show up on the writing, they usually start to catch on. And once they see that you value what's inside, then when you say to them, let's do a free write, they believe you when you say, I don't care what comes out because I want what's inside you. So that's the purpose of it. There are moments as your kids get older where they will still benefit from you jotting things down. I know for me in high school, one time when I was just falling apart, daylight savings time had hit, I lost a whole hour and had a big paper due the next day. My mom let me dictate while she typed my paper. That's the same practice, isn't it? But did my teacher know who typed my paper? No. Am I being graded on my typing skills? Hardly. That wasn't the purpose of that assignment. My mom helped me out because she's a wonderful mother and I needed some help. And like we say in Brave Writer, help helps. So yes, there are places where jotting down will continue to be helpful. If your child is just effusing and thinking of a whole bunch of ideas, for example, for their college application essay, and they can't wrestle it down into an essay form, maybe telling your child to just sit back in a chair, close their eyes, and they start talking and you start typing to gather those thoughts for them so they can go back and reshape them into an essay. Why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you do that? Somebody asked, what about high schoolers who have not written much? Writing by hand is laborious. Very creative and massive reader. So use the typewriter. Absolutely. Have your child get on the computer and use a keyboard. There's no reason to make them do it by hand. And yes, if you are starting with a high schooler, you need to sit down and have a little chat and start with free writing, maybe 2 or 3 minutes of timed writing. They can do it on the keyboard and you can start writing with your child. I would recommend the Writer's Jungle in that case so that you're learning how to support and nurture this process. The Writer's Jungle is my book, by the way. Jenny says, We started partnership writing this year, and my dyslexic daughter has done each project without complaint. That's beautiful. So partnership writing is a tool that you can use from Brave Writer that involves the mother and the child to produce projects together. And what you end up with is a partnership produced product. But that's how we've taught them everything. Do we just hand our child a shoe with shoelaces and say, tie your shoe? Just because they know how to walk or know how to put their foot in the shoe? No. Initially, we tied it. Then one day, we showed them how to tie it, and then we still tied it. And then another day, we showed them how to tie it, and they tried to tie it, and then we had to get out the door because they couldn't finish it, and we tied it. And then the next time, they tied it mostly, and it looked kind of loose, but we left it there because we know that it was important to them to be the one who tied it. But when we arrived at the store and the shoe was untied, we bent over and tied it. And then finally, one day, that child woke up and tied that shoe, and we were out of a job. But it wasn't one day we tied it and the next day they tied it. There was all those in-between stages where sometimes we took over and sometimes we let them do it until one day they were tying their own shoe. We're totally comfortable with that, with tying shoes, with going from breastfeeding to steak knife and a fork, with teaching a child how to ride a bike, with helping them brush their teeth, with learning to drive a car. But for some reason with writing, we're not willing to be partners. We think the moment they can read a few words and handwrite the alphabet, they're on their own. Hands off. We're not allowed to contribute a single vocabulary word. We're not allowed to model a single brainstorming activity. It's all supposed to come from them or we're interfering. That somehow if we jot down their words, now it's somehow my words. And yet there's an entire profession that I'm a part of called ghostwriting, where celebrities hire people to write their words down for them. The ultimate jot it down job. And they get paid for it. And the celebrity's name goes on the book and the ghostwriter's name does not. I'm trying to help you understand a little something about writing here. Writing is a tool. Writing is about what we can accomplish together, whether it's with an editor or a teacher or a parent or a collaborator or a best friend who reads my blog and leaves me a comment. Writing is collaborative. It requires your words and a reader. And even if it's private writing, you are collaborating with two parts of yourself, the writer and then the person you are that goes back and rereads your own words so that you learn something from yourself. Writing is collaborative. And if we take that perspective when we're working on writing with our kids, we stop punishing them for spelling mistakes. And you should know this already. And you wrote a paragraph yesterday. Why are you refusing today? We'll start to understand that there's an ebb and flow to the writing life, just like some days I don't want to talk as much. And some days I don't feel like putting out extra effort. And other days I'm willing to just really hunker down because it's self-expression. Self-expression isn't always available. Some days it's stilted. You've watched me. I mean, I've done hundreds of these live broadcasts. Some days my voice is kind of tired and flat. Other days it's musical and happy. Some days I'm articulate. Some days I'm tripping over my own words. So what does that mean? It just means some days I'm great at speaking and other days it's harder. Writing's the same. Some days I'm good at tying my shoes. Some days I'm not. You get it? Somebody asked if we are using the arrow and completing the writing projects that go along with each edition, is it good practice to complete the projects in partnership writing as well? So the little writing activities in the arrow are meant to be like an hour, like they're meant to be for the day. Occasionally, some child will really get into it and it'll last longer, or you may discover that it's something you can really develop. But those are meant to help you explore a literary device with your children. The partnership writing projects are more of a month-long process that is meant to result in a final piece of writing that you celebrate and share. So certainly, if you really got into one of those arrow writing activities and you don't feel like doing a partnership writing project, by all means, don't. You should do what feels like you're getting the juice out of a writing experience, not what makes you feel overwhelmed or enslaved. So my suggestion is, I trust you. I trust you to know when it's too much and when it's just right. Okay? You can decide. What else have we got here? This is great. Somebody says, my 6th grade son is struggling with a beginning research assignment. He thinks it's pointless. Well, when kids say that something is pointless, they usually are using a code word for, it's going to be a lot of work. I don't want to do it because it's going to be hard. It's not going to be enjoyable. So I'll just say it's pointless. I'll win the argument about its value, and then I don't have to expose my own lack, my inability. But that isn't the truth. We know that research assignments can be really valuable. So how we do it in Brave Writer is this. We do something that I call party school reports. We maximize the research period and we minimize the writing portion. We use the writing of a research project to teach research skills, to learn how to use the library and go online and look at credible versus not credible sources. But most kids don't want to do that just for a writing project. So you know what we do in my family? We throw a party. We do what I call a research report party. So for instance, when my son Noah wanted to write about the gold rush, we did all of this research into California. We drew maps. We looked up the people who were the famous characters of that era. We understood the science and math of panning for gold and sluicing for gold. And we even set up a whole sluice for a party. We did all this research so we could throw a party. We brought all these family friends in who are homeschoolers. We all dressed up like old-time miners. We had pork and beans. We made a great big campsite. We had pinned the gold nugget on Sutter's Creek, a map that we hung on a tree, nailed to a tree. We had a great big sandbox with pie tins that we punched holes in, and we panned for fool's gold. And then that gold could be taken over to the little camp store and traded on scales for licorice and for sarsaparilla root beer. We did all this research. Noah made these little note cards that were for each person who arrived at the party, and they each had to be a certain historical figure from that era. That was what we did. We spent all this time researching and planning this party. And then it took 6 weeks. When it was over, and that's all we did. We didn't do math. We planned a party for 6 weeks. We went all in. We went to Knott's Berry Farm to buy the fool's gold. I taught Noah how to use a sewing machine, and he made these little bags so we could put the fool's gold in it out of old flannel shirts. We went all in. He had to write the invitations. He had to write the addresses on envelopes and know where the stamp went. We went to thrift stores to get our costumes. We learned how to use hammers and nails and bought wood to make a sluice. Do you understand what I'm saying? We learned about sarsaparilla and how to make it. We went all in. 6 weeks. That's all we did. Then we had this big party, and then we wrote a report. Took that information, typed it up, put it in a little report. The least interesting part of that whole journey was the writing part. But he did the writing. It's just that he did the research. And that was the most important part of that experience for him. He already knew how to do writing. We did free writing. We had creative writing. We did all kinds of writing. So writing up a report after you've already done all this research and actually experienced the gold rush, not just read about it and regurgitated somebody else's ideas, but actually had a hands-on first-person experience, yeah, that writing is better when you do that. And we did that again and again. Johanna did one of her projects was on the study of India. We threw an entire Indian party. And you know what's funny? She wrote her paper on yellow, like a yellow legal pad, and I never typed it. We ran out of energy. We were like, well, we had a party. She wrote the report and it's pretty good. All right, we'll be done. This has not held her back, by the way. This is the girl who has been all the way through Ohio State, has worked as a counselor at a college level, is traveling the world, teaches the Arrow and the Boomerang Book Club, and is going off to grad school next year. Like, do you see what I'm saying? The fact that we didn't type up that report has not held her back. I need you to know that. So when you are thinking about skills, don't always assume that you have to teach everything all at once all the time. If research is your aim, how do you engage a child in research? How do we help them value research? Don't think, well, he has to do it for a paper. Maybe there's something else he can research that he cares about. What if he researched, for example, roller coasters? When we first moved to Ohio, Noah discovered that there were theme parks all over the country, not just in California. And he became fascinated by roller coasters. So he created a notebook of roller coasters. Each page had the name of a coaster, where it was located, what the name of the park was, its height, its speed, how many loop-de-loops, what the angle was. Like, that was copy work for months. The whole notebook were papers of that. He had to research. He had to learn how to use the internet. And do you know what then he did? He went and rode them. We got an annual pass at Kings Island and he rode all of those. Then his dad took him up to Cedar Point so he could ride some of those. Do you get it? That's research any sixth grade boy would be excited to do. So get out of the thinking that research has to be only about the Incas and Aztecs for a 5-paragraph compare and contrast essay in 7th grade. And start thinking about, what's the skill I want him to have? I want him to be able to differentiate between credible and not credible detail. I want him to be able to use the internet in a profitable way. I want him to understand how to look up books using the Dewey Decimal System. I want him to understand how I scan through a book looking at subheads to find information that would be relevant to my topic, and how to also look at those subheads and skip whole sections of the book because they're not relevant. I want to talk to him about the difference between an expert opinion and a celebrity opinion, and how a celebrity's opinion on whatever topic, gun rights, has nothing to do with expert opinion by someone who actually is in the gun lobby or somebody who has worked with gun injury. And how do I differentiate between those two? Which one goes in a paper or in a blog, or that I would quote to a friend on a Facebook argument? That's the purpose of research. So rethink your goals. You know, when parents say to me, my kid doesn't like writing, they don't like the writing you've been asking them to do. Most kids, once they get in touch with their writing voices, actually enjoy self-expression that shows up in writing. They like self-expression that shows up in speech. Those are not two different things. They're the same thing. So if you are struggling with a child who says something is pointless, I always come back to, what does he think I'm asking? And what am I actually asking? He thinks I'm asking him to do a tedious task about a subject he doesn't care about for a purpose that is in some distant future I can't see. Versus, I have a goal that my child would understand this set of skills. How can I deliver that in a way that connects with who he is today, not someone I keep promising he will become? Because the truth of the matter is, you don't know. You don't know. Your child could get hit by a bus tomorrow. And that's not me being alarmist. That's me being truthful. Your child may choose not to go to college. Your child may become a fabulous entrepreneur at age 17 and never need these skills. So your job in preparation is to stay connected to the child of today, and the things that will long-term benefit them, you have to be the creative rethinker who makes it relevant now, not just always in service of somebody they aren't even yet and don't imagine being. For a 10-year-old, 18 is a lifetime away. So to say you need this because we're going toward college is a joke. You're asking that child to think double his lifespan. He's 10. But could he research something that would be awesome today? Could he do research into Legos and all of the different kits and who created them before Christmas? Because it would be fun to know that information. So think that way, right? Think that way. Start imagining life through the lens of your child. All right, what else have we got here? My child is researching Napoleon right now. We're using your note card system. At this age grade level, should we push through to writing up the report? You could still have a party. You could write a report. You could do a YouTube video. You could do a PowerPoint presentation. Do you know in college, that is the most common form of oral report now? And most homeschoolers forget to ever practice it or do it because, hello, you're home, you're hanging out. But a lot of kids love learning Prezi or PowerPoint or Keynote, and they could be allowed to explore that medium. In fact, middle school writing projects and high school writing projects, 2 of our online classes, explore using PowerPoint as one of the tools for giving a report. So maybe after you do all this research, he can combine visual and written narrative and put it into a PowerPoint and share it with the family. Wouldn't that be awesome? In your co-op class, Barb, your teen had to create a game to make a sales pitch. She ended up learning to write a persuasive essay in the process. Beautiful. A lot of kids join speech and debate teams, and they learn more about expository writing in speech and debate than they ever learn in an English class. Because speech and debate is exciting. You're on a team, you're performing, you're being judged. You have to be good at it. It's not just getting a letter grade. So think about it that way too. Very good. Let's see what else we've got in here. I think we're at our limit actually. Awesome. Okay, well to me this is looking like we are at the end. Somebody asks, how many of those parties did you have over the years? Great question. I did probably 1 to 2 a year, if that many, but I wasn't the only one. 2 years, excuse me. 2 years, I was in a support group of homeschoolers that had 5 other families, and so we each threw a party a month. So I threw one, so out of 5 people, party, 5 months of parties. And then the second semester, party. So I had to throw 2, and everyone else had to throw 2. And they varied. One of them was an American Girl party. One of them was a medieval feast. We met at my friend Eileen's house. We took the drapes literally down off of her. She was sick of her drapes, and they were hanging. She's like, oh, let's use these to make medieval costumes. We literally took them down off her window, pulled out all our sewing machines, and started sewing. It was wonderful. It was wonderful. Involve your friends. Don't do these things alone. Why would you do these things alone? If you're going to throw a party, rope in 3 other families. We did a solar system tea party. I think I posted that on an Instagram a few weeks ago. And I just dialed up my best friend who lived in the other balcony. We were in condos at the time. She was a homeschooler. I'm like, Mike, it's nighttime. My kids are really reading all these books about the solar system. We just went outside and made telescopes out of construction paper. Want to come over? So her daughter shows up dressed like Jupiter. She's got, the red patch on her eye and this yellow and red dress. And she walks, it took her like 10 minutes to come over. I'm like, what's taking them so long? She's like, well, I wanted to come in a costume. So she showed up as Jupiter. I cut up all these cheese, stars and these crescent moon apples. And we read poems and of course had tea and cookies. And we talked about the solar system. And then the next day, we actually tried to be the solar system. So we went outside. I still remember this. And we had like somebody to be the sun. They hold up their arms. I am the sun. And then we started measuring out where the planets would be. And very quickly, we were going to have to send our sweet little children miles away, to be Pluto. We're like, well, just pretend that you're miles away because we can't put you miles away. But it's suddenly like, wow, Pluto is freaking far away if we can't even stand in a representation of it on our street and still see each other like that. So that's what our parties look like. Sometimes they were not elaborate. They were last minute, spontaneous, oh my gosh, this is a moment, let's live it. And sometimes they were well planned and we invited a whole bunch of families. And sometimes they were collaboratively constructed. So you can do any version of that. And versions I haven't thought of. That's my favorite thing. I was telling Johanna last night, my favorite thing is to tell you an idea I did and then to watch everybody else do it way better with more creativity that I didn't think of. That I love, because then it just makes me know that this is your thing. It's not about doing what I did. So remember, I'm wearing this t-shirt. So do you remember this hashtag, pixie dust? Sprinkle a little pixie dust on your homeschool. That's all I'm saying. When you are in that moment where you know there's something you want your child to learn and they tell you it's pointless, whether it's writing or math or research or assignments, your job as the enchanted educator that you are is to pause and wait for the pixie dust. Be creative, brainstorm, talk to your friends, listen to a Periscope, go online and be inspired by Pinterest and blogs, and allow your creativity to solve the problem. Do not put it on your child. If your child says something is pointless, it's not his job to make it have a point. That's your only job. There are 3 things you bring. You bring money, driving, and admiration of your child to this relationship. That's it. And so you can use your money and your car to take them places or pay for parties or create new solutions for the thing that right now feels pointless. That's your job. It's the pixie dust job. You get to be the fairy godmother. Isn't that like the best job in Cinderella? You get to transform an experience. That's why home education is wonderful. Who wants to just superintend, proctor a bunch of workbooks? I mean, did you sign up for homeschool so that you could superintend workbooks? Because I sure didn't. They're doing more creative stuff in the local schools than that. I wanted it to be an adventure of learning. And if my child wasn't getting it, then it was my joy, my privilege, my opportunity to find the pixie dust, to enchant that piece, to find it. Now, you cannot do this massive party scale school every day. But like I said, you can once in a while. And once in a while is weirdly enough. It creates such happy memories. It creates a bonding between you that when you return to the routine of your life of homeschool, you will have more buy-in because your child has this satisfying memory. It's not just drudgery and repetition and living for the future out there. Do you hear me? All right. Well, this was fun. I didn't know we'd get into all that about writing, but we have 1 day left of our wonderful book, A Gracious Space Fall. We will read that together. We'll have a little celebration, a little powwow. If your friends have not discovered these yet, they can watch all of them here on Facebook or on YouTube. They will stay here for you forever, so you can go back and rewatch them. And we will continue to read A Gracious Space in the Homeschool Alliance after January 1st. Somebody asked me if these will be recorded in the Homeschool Alliance. Yes, they will. I will be posting the replays in the Alliance. So if you can't make it live, you can always watch them later in the day or the next day. So, to recap, writing matters. Learning to do it well makes life easier, and it makes all of the writing tasks of your future ones that you feel comfortable completing, whether it's writing a love letter to your spouse, or fulfilling your tasks at your job, or being really smart online in a Facebook discussion group. All of those are valid uses of writing, and we are preparing our children for all of them, including the academic tasks of college. Thanks for joining me today. Live honestly. Write bravely. I'm Julie Bogart.